everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
Today we're going to tell you how we felt about It Chapter 2, and we're also going to do a bit of a spoiler cast because Eric has lots of stuff he wants to say about this.
I do have, because
he doesn't feel like he can talk about it unless we spoil things.
I finished the audiobook. I listened to all 44 hours.
Congratulations, sir. That sounded like quite a daunting experience.
It was. And so there's going to be a lot of that informing my viewing, and also informed by I went to a double feature of It and It Chapter 2. Boy, I don't like that first movie as much as I did the first time, but then there's bits of it that I do like. Yeah. I actually will go back a little bit on my statement that nothing that's scary. It's only Pennywise. All of the other scary things, I'm like, oh no, the zombies are good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just Pennywise sucks.
We'll talk about that because there's some non-Pennywise stuff in the second movie that I didn't think was scary at all, but I completely agree with you.
Which is unfortunate because the original miniseries sucks. I'm sorry. The original miniseries sucks, and the only good thing about it is Pennywise.
Regardless of the perfect clown choice.
Yeah, Tim Curry obviously is amazing. If we could have had him, that first movie would be a lot better.
Is that the reason that he that he tried out to be the Joker? Is that the reason that he almost got the Joker? Was that he played a scary clown once?
Maybe, but remember he's in like every cartoon show at that
That's
period.
a good point, yeah.
But I have major issues with the ending of the first one, and there's so much stuff now having gone through the book where I was like, oh, you're missing all this really important stuff. And they clearly thought so too, because they put it back in the second one.
Yeah, interesting. But maybe that was the plan all along, because there was clearly a lot of like a lot of forethought.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because we know that they made that movie so that if it wasn't super successful, it wouldn't be super unsatisfying. They did not have a script for the second one written.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you some questions about that here in a minute. Why don't we do our real broad stroke stuff real quick for anybody that has not had a chance to watch this, and then I'm going to ask you things about how that second movie got made. Okay. So I will. The first thing I want to say is Eric is going to have a lot more to say about these than I will. I was mostly just here to push the button and to flip my sign. I am.
Are you officially flipping it green?
I am officially flipping it green.
Okay.
I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Okay.
I think it is, quality-wise, very much on par with the first movie, both acting-wise and story-wise. I think it does, for the most part, a really good job of keeping its continuity straight and of being just an extension of that first movie. I see this very much as Infinity War and Endgame, where it's kind of two movies and it's kind of one movie, and it works really well that way. I don't think I would want to sit through all 5 hours of it at once like you did. I watched the first movie again this morning and was glad that I had a few hours in between. But, especially because it does also have that endgame thing of, if you watch them right next to each other, you get some deja vu, where it's like, oh, here are scenes I've seen before, and like, it
that
makes
was a little annoying.
It does make sense when we do that, we go back to that, and it doesn't feel like it's just we're playing our greatest hits of our one movie. It doesn't feel like that.
Are scenes except for the opening.
What do you mean?
Like the clubhouse, like all the flashbacks are new.
Yes, I know that. But what I'm saying is there are a couple places where it's like the new actors have to go back to places the old actors were last time. Where it's like we're repeating scenes because we have to repeat scenes. Like, oh, we're going back to the house at about the same place we did in the last movie. Things like that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the Vormir thing with Endgame. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we gotta go back and see Red Skull again. It feels like that. I'm still with you that the clown is not especially scary, although I liked him more here in certain places. I don't know if you had that.
I agree. I think he's much better in this. Part of that is because I don't have the constant irritation of, you are a clown to seduce children and then scare them.
Yes.
You're not trying to seduce adults, so I don't have that constant issue.
No, and hopefully this is not too big of a spoiler, but I really appreciated that they put kind of a pin on that, where they've got a scene where he tries to seduce a little girl
and she goes, you
at a baseball game, and she's like, yeah, I'm not going with you, you're terrifying. And I was like, that's great.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then I bought how he actually got her to talk to him. Like, that was a good scene.
I think his performance is markedly better.
Yeah.
There's a line in Tropic Thunder.
I feel like I was getting a better sense of why that actor was chosen.
Yes, I agree. There's a line in Tropic Thunder I kept thinking about. In Tropic Thunder, when they're watching Ben Stiller have to recreate his Simple Jack performance, and Robert Downey Jr. is like, no, see, he's eased up a little bit, and now the audience can connect. I had that where I'm like, no, you're being a little bit more restrained, and that's helping your performance tremendously. I liked him a lot better. I didn't love him, but he was a lot better in this.
And he's
I wasn't irritated every time he was on screen, which I was in the first movie.
Yeah. He's at a place at the end where he's as sympathetic as he can possibly be, and like I found myself kind of feeling for him for a minute, and I appreciated that whole thing.
I mean, I didn't because of what he is.
No, I know, but just for a second, just watching him and the sad.
No,
yeah.
I know what you're saying.
I have special effects issues like I did with the first movie. There are places where the CG is not real well integrated, and the Uncanny Valley is really bad, but there are just as many scenes where the CG is pretty good and where I can't tell if it's practical or not. Some of that stuff with Pennywise at the end is super impressive.
I agree. Twice the budget of the first film.
You can see it. There.
It's on screen. I don't think any of the CGI in the first film works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that's because I don't think CGI really works for horror. In this, I thought most of the CGI worked. There's one that I thought didn't look great, but I loved it anyways. The thing we do with the old lady. I was laughing my head off at.
I thought it was funny, but that is one of the things I'm talking about.
It doesn't look good.
That was that Legion CGI again. Not the TV show, but the crappy.
But I liked the design before I liked the actual effect.
Okay, fair enough. And she wasn't running across the ceiling, and I was kind of surprised by that. And
everything I didn't like in the trailer is like not in the movie,
no,
and it's like done differently in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and we thought that was gonna give us like a whole like history and backstory that doesn't.
Nope,
it doesn't do any of that.
It's played like it is in the book.
Yeah.
The trailer plays it like it's going to be something different, and it's like it is in the book.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
And then but with that CGI, there's a thing in the fortune cookie scene that I just couldn't even deal with.
Which one?
The baby.
Oh yes,
the baby face. Couldn't deal with it.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, but it's so not there. It just takes me out real bad.
No, you're right. But some
awful.
of the CGI looks good, and I don't think any of the CGI in the first movie looks good. Like, none of it looks terrible, but like it's. I mean, it's working against itself because I don't think CGI is scary. I think the thing that didn't bother me as much in this one is a lot of the things that they were doing the CGI for in this one, where it was not great CGI. I don't know if I was supposed to be scared by it, but I wasn't. Like, I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
like
sure.
The baby thing, the old woman thing, like all of those I think are amusing. So I'm not minding because I'm not like, well, I'm supposed to be scared of this. Maybe I am supposed to be scared of this, but I'm not. I think they're hilarious.
I loved that scene though. Besides that, I loved it. Yeah, it's so great.
It's really good.
So let me back things off for a second and say story-wise, this film felt, this is maybe an obvious thing to say, but it felt absolutely necessary character-wise, where I felt like I understood and appreciated some of these characters even more than I did in the first movie. There's some double beat stuff. There's some bits where I'm like, yeah, I kind of know this already. Like, I felt like, particularly the scenes where we were adding in because this isn't just the adults this time. We go back and do flashback scenes where we do new scenes about the kids that we didn't see before, and most of it is here's an experience they have with Pennywise that we didn't know about. Some of those, a lot of them were really inventive, but oftentimes it felt like they were really making a big point out of a character trait I kind of knew already. But like getting the band back together, so to speak, and a lot of the relationship stuff was really well handled. But also like I bought where these people were as adults, and I did feel like I knew them a little bit better. And all the recasting is wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like, except for the guy who plays grown-up Ben, who's the fat kid. But that's difficult because you are playing.
Did you just not buy him as the same person?
It's a really difficult role because you are taking an unconfident fat kid and you have to play the muscular, confident version, and so it's harder to see those as the same person. Because there's so much development in the intervening time.
That's true. It's that Dark Knight Rises thing where like you haven't seen these people for so long.
Everyone else felt so on point, and I'm seeing
exactly the same character.
I'm seeing a lot of reviews that are talking about specifically Richie, who's the funny kid. Yeah. Bill Hader kills it in this movie.
Yeah, he's great.
And he was the cast of yours I was most excited about.
One of the funniest things he says is when they all get there, and he's like, "Well, you guys look great. What the hell happened to me?"
Yeah, that's great. He also gets the biggest laugh in the entire movie from me. which might be a spoiler.
Well, he
so I won't
should.
say.
He's the comic relief.
Yes, but the scary door thing.
Oh, it's so funny!
It's the biggest laugh in the entire movie.
That was that Endgame thing where I was like, "How we got to do this again?" I was like, "Thank God we did this again!" But also, okay, so the character that I was most impressed with, that I felt like was giving, not only did the actor look similar, but I felt like was giving the same performance, but not like a character that had completely stagnated for 27 years. It just, he was the same guy. The hypochondriac kid. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And they do this shot that should have been pretentious, but because they cast it right, it didn't feel that way, where we fade from his young face into his new face just to say, "Aren't we geniuses?" And I was like, "You guys deserve that. You can have it, because you are."
And everyone, all of the reviews I've seen are talking about, specifically Bill Hader as Richie, but I feel like we are getting to this point where we just assume it. But like, McAvoy's brilliant.
Oh my God, he's so, of course, yeah.
Like, it's getting to the point.
I wasn't even gonna say it because it's so obvious, and everybody knows that I'm like the biggest McAvoy fan.
Like,
he's like my favorite actor of that era.
I can't think of a movie, at least not in a long time, where like I have seen McAvoy and he feels like McAvoy. Wanted, we talked about this at some point in a recent video about how actors...
Oh, you just mean that he disappears?
Yeah, we're like, we talked about this recent video that, like, actors aren't born great actors, like, you develop that. It's like, when you go back to Wanted, and you go back to, like, Mr. Tumnus, like, you're not seeing, like, a genius. I can't tell you when in the last 5 years I've seen him in a movie where he's not playing a completely different person. Like, I always know it's McAvoy, but, like, he's doing something with his voice here. Like, he's not just doing his regular American voice. He is doing a very specific voice that sounds like the grown-up version of that kid's voice to hit to this.
There's a reason.
And he does the stutter fantastic.
Yeah. And he's so good at deciding, like, when to really lay it on thick and when to not have it at all. And, I mean, I'm sure some of that's directing, but, like, it's great.
You know what? I will say the biggest improvement from book to both of these movies is the stutter. It is, like, every word in the book.
Oh, that's
irritating. It is annoying.
I'm sure
you do not get through a sentence, which is
especially annoying.
Yes, you do not get through a sentence without it stuttering.
Because at least if you're reading it, you can skim that part.
Yeah.
Although you might miss important things. But what I want to say about McAvoy is, to your point, there's a reason he feels like the only person who could have played the Horde, right? Like, because he's able to put on so many different dialects and mannerisms. And when you said this doesn't feel like anything else with McAvoy, after the first half hour, I agree with you. But there are a couple of things that I feel like he's taking from Split.
There is a little bit of the little kid performance.
That's what I'm talking about. Specifically.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I also thought that, and I was feeling it a little bit in the trailers, but
I forgot all about it about half an hour in.
He's like doing a grown-up version of that voice, kind of. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It is he's definitely coming from a similar place that he came from when he did that performance, but I still think, at least once you get used to it, it's a completely different performance. His mannerisms are different, obviously.
So anyway, I liked it a lot. It's not perfect. It's got pacing issues. I think it's longer than it needs to be. You probably don't have that because I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff in the book that you wish was there, but like that's not, and I'm sure you'll tell us about that. But like, there are whole scenes I feel like you could cut, but I liked every scene. I will say this is gonna sound like a weird thing to say. There was a point about halfway through where I really needed to get up and go to the bathroom, and it was difficult to decide when to leave, and that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. No,
when you're like, all of this feels necessary, I don't want to miss anything. And I don't know what I missed because I didn't have somebody there to tell me what I missed, but I almost got up during
the old woman scene?
the Stephen King cameo, and thank God that didn't happen.
Oh yeah, no, and he's great.
It's so much fun. It's a really good cameo. I had heard he had a cameo, and I assumed he said 2 lines. He gets a whole scene, and it's great.
I did not hear that he had the cameo. No, I was so excited.
That's why more fun if you didn't know about it.
I was giddy. I was like, oh, it's Stephen King. He's here.
I thought he was great. Did you have what I had? Well, I don't want to do spoilers. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
So, flip your sign and you tell us how you felt about it.
I loved it.
Did you really?
I thought it was phenomenal. I think this improves the first movie a lot.
Yeah.
I think that there are things in that first movie that are, having read the book, there are things in that first movie that I think are...
We're going to hear that a lot.
...very important that are missing, and they clearly thought so too, because they put them back in the flashbacks. I think the...
You're not talking about mythology stuff.
No, I'm talking about character beats.
Okay.
I thought some of that stuff was really important and was missing. The treehouse thing was interesting.
That felt like the most retroactive thing.
It did.
To me. It
That's
was
an important thing in the book.
It was weird that that's not in the first movie at all, if you're going to put it in here. And I had this thing where
Especially because it's the foundation of what Ben grows up to be.
That's a good point.
It is giving you him being an architect.
That's a good point.
But I don't mind it so much because it's kind of one movie, but it's not. So, like, I wish it was in the first movie, but it is here.
You have to take all those on a case-by-case basis, right?
I want a recut of the whole thing.
Because there are places where I find myself going, well, if you're going to talk about this now, I probably should have known about it in the first movie. And there are other places where I'm like, no, the fact that you gave me the flashback now means I don't have to remember it from before, and then you don't have to hold my hand. Because there are a couple places where we do real quick flashbacks from the first movie in case you forget, and I hate when we have to do that, but I will admit that the places where we did it did feel probably necessary. But the treehouse thing especially, I was like, how is that not in the first movie? Like, I felt myself going, wait, there was a treehouse? Like, I thought I forgot something, and then they show it, and then they show you, they show them building it, and I'm like, or they show them going into it for the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this wasn't in the first movie that I just watched 6 hours ago.
Yep. No, I think this enhances the first movie. And I'll go as far as this, because like, I don't love that first movie, and having read the book, I have major issues with the ending. It doesn't affect this movie as much, because they don't go the same. Talking about the ending of the first movie for a second.
Yeah.
They just beat him up physically.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to do what they did in the book because it's insane. But the whole point, the reason these kids and no other kids in all of this time are able to stop him is their imagination.
Yeah.
It's they're all creatives. And that's why they go on to be successful when they grow up is...
They don't make a big enough point of that, do they?
No. But then it's also not that important at the conclusion of this film either. So, like, I guess it's not a problem for this version of the story.
They beat him in a way that's more believable, but in the first movie it kind of plays like it's just, well, we're not afraid, and so now we can beat you up.
Yeah, it's not that way. In the book, it's all about their imagination. And, like it's about believing in things. So, like, there's a point where they... Because he takes the form of what you're afraid of. They believe he's a werewolf. And they have like, silver that they hit him with. And, like, that... physically damages him because he's a werewolf, and they believe that this will work. And things like that. Where, like, it's imagination.
You know what didn't occur to me, too? There is no thematic parallel with the placebo idea if you don't put a point on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't even know what the point of the placebo was thing was until you said that.
And in the book, he says it's battery acid, and he sprays it. Like, he believes it's something else, and uses it as a weapon.
Real quick, because I keep wanting to ask you this question, do they refer to it as it in the book like they do in the
constantly.
movies? Oh, okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was just like a title thing, if it was sort of like Watchmen, with the movie has to say Watchmen, when the book didn't.
There are issues I have with the film. I love it, and I will go back to this movie, and honestly...
And maybe not the first one?
Yes.
Interesting.
I will go back to the first movie if I want to watch the two of them together.
Yeah.
But, like, I will revisit this more than I will revisit the previous one. I do have issues.
But you're not calling it superfluous, right? Like, you're not saying that it would make any sense to
you
watch
can't watch
movie.
just two. No, no. But having the context, I can watch.
You know what happened.
Yeah, I can watch, just like I can watch like Return of the Jedi and not have to have watched the previous ones before that. Like, I've seen those movies, I know what happens. But I do have issues. There are things that... It becomes a grander issue of adaptation. There are things that they leave in that should be cut because they don't pay off for things that have been cut.
That's the Harry Potter problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, like, they feel like they're important, but they're not. And things are... The bike doesn't do anything.
Oh, does it do something in the book?
Yeah, it's important. Kind of. I mean, yes, it's actually very important. It's crucial to the epilogue.
Like it's just nostalgia.
No, it's important. There's also a whole thing with the turtle, which I'll talk about when we get into the spoilers, that is completely cut for this movie. That's fine, but it fixes a lot of issues that both of these movies have, kind of. But my biggest...
Yeah, you mentioned something about a turtle, and I still don't know what you're talking about, but there's an homage to it.
Yes, and there is in the first film as well.
Okay.
My biggest complaint with this movie, I have some issues with the ending, which we'll talk about when we get into spoilers, but my biggest issue with this movie is... When I started listening to it, after I got through the first, like, 2 hours, that's the gay guy getting killed at the beginning of the scene at this movie, which, by the way, doesn't need to be there. We'll talk about when we get to the ending, but that scene doesn't need to be there.
I found myself wondering why it was there, what the point of it was. And I wondered if it was new.
It's not.
Okay.
I guess I can explain it here because it's not actually a spoiler for this movie. It's a spoiler for the book. Pennywise becomes the representation of awfulness and evil, but also complacency.
Oh.
Pennywise is a supernatural explanation for why it's smarter to yell fire than help if you're being assaulted in a dark alleyway.
Okay.
He is the reason that people turn their heads and no one's paying attention. And so he's the reason that Derry is so violent and awful and all these horrible things happen in Derry. And so that's to set that up tonally. I also think it should be cut from the book. I think a lot of that should be cut from the book. Because, like, I get it. That, like, Derry's bad, but, like, it's about these kids, and I don't need to really see...
Well, and also, we make that really clear in this movie, too. Like, with other scenes. We just make it really clear that the reason it's weird, especially with the idea that they don't keep all of their memories that they leave the town. Like, it's obvious that that has to do with it being there.
But I have an issue with that because I don't think it's explicit enough, and there's a lot of stuff in the first movie of people doing that. Like when Georgie gets taken in the first movie and that old woman sees it happen and just turns away and like doesn't see it.
Oh, you're saying why are people acting like out of character for what the average person would probably do? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't underline that enough that is because of it in this movie.
Especially because there is a character toward the beginning of this movie that is in a completely different place that I think is acting like bizarre. That's acting like they live in Derry, but they don't live in. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's Bev's husband.
Yes.
That whole thing feels like that should be in Derry.
Okay. So.
But anyway,
I don't agree with that. But that gets to my major complaint with this movie.
What I'm saying is that scene is written melodramatic. That's all I'm saying.
No, it is.
That it's not a problem with what happens in that scene. The scene is written melodramatic, and so it feels like that guy is maybe under an influence when he's not supposed to be. That's what I'm saying.
It is, and that's part of my problem. My biggest issue with this movie is when I went through the book, and I messaged you when I first started listening to the audiobook, that the first chunk of that, which is just them as adults getting the phone call, is amazing. And I wouldn't cut any of it. Boy, they cut all of it down to the bone. You do not get a good enough sense of who these people are and the lives that they are in. Bev's relationship in particular is not driven home enough that she married her father. Like, you get it because he's abusive, but like...
You can tell that's the point of it.
It's beyond physical. It's like, there are things that happen in the book where it's... He is in control of her and she is subservient. And they did the exact same thing in the original TV miniseries, where all you get is he's abusive. It's beyond that. Like, because when you do this in movies, oftentimes, and in TV shows, you only see this one act of violence and you go, why are they with this person?
Yeah.
I needed more.
Yeah.
And it's because I got more in the book. I also really don't like what they did with Bill McAvoy. Him and his wife have a happy relationship. Is very different. I do not like the implication where he says, this is all in the first 10 minutes, I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything, but I do not like the implication where he's like, why aren't you the woman I want you to be? And we never play with that again when he meets up with Bev later. It is mentioned in the book that she looks like her, and that might be subconsciously why he was interested in her in the first place, but he has a happy relationship with his wife.
And so the implication is... when he says, why can't you be more like I want you to, it's I want you to be like her.
Yeah, and that's not in the book.
I also didn't get that from that scene at all.
Okay, that's what I took from that scene.
Well, you're probably right, I just didn't think of it.
In the book, they talk about that she looks like Bev, but
like, spend a lot of time on it.
But they're in a happy relationship, and there was no follow-through on that later. Like, I was like, oh, so... Yeah. We're going a little bit differently because in the book they're all super successful. In this, they're like kind of successful, but not like super successful. Like they've all got their ups and downs.
None of them are super successul. Like he's probably the most so because he's got books that are selling well.
Well, Ben's might be the most so as the architect.
Did they even talk that much about his though? I forgot he was even an architect. Like
he Skype calls in and blows everyone's minds about not having walls.
And his house is amazing.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. No, you're right.
He's clearly the most successful.
Yeah, and then you have the Bill Hader who is a stand-up comedian and fills auditoriums, but doesn't seem to be doing that great at the same time.
He messes up and they yell at him, but then later a kid knows his act, which makes you think he's successful, but they don't present as successful.
It's weird to have what looks like, especially the way they shoot it, a Comedy Central special, where somebody yells, "You suck." It's it's really hard to believe that that would ever happen.
Yeah,
It would
because
be a
you're
lot-
there to see him, and you would
Yeah.
maybe even think that what he's doing is intentional.
Yeah.
Like he intentionally forgot the end of his joke
Wouldn't you,
because
especially
he's doing something.
3.5 seconds in, I mean, it's right at the beginning. Wouldn't you be on his side for a minute and be like, oh, maybe something's happened to him. Maybe something's wrong.
Or
Maybe somebody died right before he walked on stage,
Or
right?
he's doing something,
Or
right?
he's right.
Like this is leading to a bit.
Either of those.
You're giving him
yeah.
the benefit of the doubt. He's a famous comedian.
Yeah.
And
You
Bev...
probably paid $500 to be there.
And Bev, it's one line of dialogue, but she has a massively successful clothing line.
Oh, I missed that entirely.
Yeah, they mention it, and McAvoy's like, oh, the line that my wife has, like, all of her clothing comes from.
All of that watches maybe a little bit too easy if you don't realize that the point was supposed to be they're all like you said earlier, really creative, and maybe they wouldn't have been like that if they hadn't gone through the experiences they did. Although they forget a lot of that, so that's always a question: is like how much were they actually informed by?
Well, it's very much because it's subconscious. It's treated more like repressed memories it is in this too, but like it is simultaneously a metaphor for looking back at your childhood with rose-colored glasses and not remembering all the bad stuff.
Yep.
But it's also repressed memories of childhood trauma. Like we're kind of doing things with both of those, and so even if things.
Well, those things are really related, right? Like
Yes.
you can have a super traumatic childhood that you long for.
Yeah, because oftentimes because you remove a lot of the bad stuff, and like that's what it's about.
Which is the reason you might marry your abusive parent.
Yes.
And things like that.
Yes.
And why we tend to turn into our
Because it
parents.
affects you on a subconscious level, and
Yeah.
that's what all of this is about. And
Yeah.
we don't get to see enough of how it has affected them before they go back to Derry.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with the movie.
Yeah.
And there are scenes I think you could cut to add time.
Especially because it's 3 hours long.
Yes.
And do you agree with me that some of the scenes where it's just here's a thing that they did with Pennywise, like they're at the very least they're too long. Some of them.
I agree.
They don't all feel necessary. I mean, I think that they're. I don't know. I think they're there because that very often that's what makes the totem they're looking for significant. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're getting pretty much into spoiler territory at this point, but yeah. But overall, you dug it.
I really liked it. I have issues with it. It's not a perfect film. I think it is a marked improvement over the first film, which I didn't
And obviously
love.
the miniseries.
Oh, yes. Especially the second half of the main... Because, like, everyone that likes the miniseries, what they're doing is they are having repressed childhood memories where they're forgetting the second episode of the miniseries. They're only remembering the kid episode. That's what they're remembering. They're not remembering the spider that's, like, made out of, like drain cleaner. It's
And see,
bad.
if you just kept basic cable, you would have remembered all that for all that time. But if you drop basic cable and you get, like, satellite or Netflix or something, then you forget all about that.
But all of the adult stuff in the miniseries is awful. And so this is a huge improvement over all of that.
Now, does the miniseries do the same thing that this does, where it does the kid stuff and then the adult stuff?
Yes and no.
Because it's mixed in the book, right?
It is mixed in the book. It's
And
more...
you said, just for the audience's benefit, for folks that haven't read the book, like
Yes.
me, you said, just reiterating something you said earlier, you said that the book opens with the phone calls from this movie, right?
Yes.
That's a really interesting way to...
It opens with the gay guy getting murdered, and then
right.
and then just I listened to audio. I was gonna say pages, but like I listened to an audio, and then like 2 hours of cops interrogating the guy that does the actual assault, and it's boring and terrible and needs to be cut from that book.
Sound remotely
But
necessary or interesting.
The book starts with all the phone calls, and then they go back, and the way it's treated is basically this is almost like super faithful to the book up until a certain point in which we kind of diverge. But up until that point, like I'm like, this is from the book, this is from the book, this is from the book, this is from the book. Like almost like tallying in my head. I was like, they kept telling me this was going to be different from the book, and so far it's very similar to the book.
Besides emphasis and lack of emphasis.
Yeah. But so the way the book is structured is so like we get to the Chinese restaurant, and then we start talking about memories, and then we flash back and we have huge chunks about them as kids, and then they meet up later again and they talk about them as kids. So like it's kind of told as a framing device, which is why there's so little adult stuff kind of in the book, and why I think it's hard to adapt into the two sections because the adults have less stuff. Or so I thought. And then I'm watching this movie and I was like, No, I guess there is a bunch of adults. Like, this is all in the book, and, like, I guess this fills mostly a movie running time. Yeah, sure.
I gotta say, despite the fact that I'm complaining that there are places where some of the kid stuff feels redundant, I'm not even saying that they're on screen too much. I just think that there are places where
it's a double beat for the first movie.
They should have done something that gave us more information or drew them more. But I really appreciated that it wasn't squarely all adult and we never went back. Partly because it helps me remember who is supposed to be who.
Yes,
that helps a lot.
But in the original miniseries, the first episode is basically all kid stuff, but because obviously it's built around commercial breaks, it opens with someone getting a phone call, and you see them where they are in their life, and then we have a segment that's mostly about them.
Okay.
As a kid. And then cuts commercial break. Next segment, Bev gets a phone call. Oh. And now you have mostly the stuff that focuses on Bev. And then the next segment you get a... So the adults are in the first half, but it's mostly about the kids.
Way better in the first movie, don't we?
We do. We do. Well, because we don't have adult stuff. If I had my druthers, I would also like to say I think the book is unadaptable. You have to make changes. You cannot adapt that book. I think it is so much of it is internal.
And you think they knew that when they made it?
I think they knew that when they made this part, because this is the harder part.
Yeah.
Because so much of it is about who they become as people and who they are.
For the most part, it's very internal. It feels like a movie. It doesn't feel like we're forcing book stuff too much.
It also doesn't feel like Cliff Notes.
Right. With the exception of the first thing I said is at the end of the movie, the way they beat it does feel like a thing that would read better than it watches. It's just very, very difficult. Are we in full spoilers now?
Yeah, let's transition to full spoilers.
Full spoilers now.
We both do feeling it. We both liked it. I think I liked it probably a little bit better than you.
Don't watch it anymore. Probably so, but I just don't know the material.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Maybe you should read the book. All 1,200 pages.
I'd like to. Yeah. I might actually read it and not listen to it.
Yeah.
Because I can skim stuff.
Yeah.
It's boring.
Anything that's about history of dairy, just skim. It was bad. Dairy used to be bad. You get it. When Mike speaks, skip. It's unfortunate, but like, and they fixed Mike quite a bit. He gets so sidelined.
I was going to talk to you about Mike. That was that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about.
But
anyway,
we were talking about the conclusion. Yes.
If I'm going to go straight to the ending, so don't watch anymore.
And that's good because that leads into me talking about the turtle, so I can get all that out there.
Straight to the ending. When you've got people just like chanting for 10 minutes. And then just yelling like you're just a clown. You're not. You're not scary. You're not that great. That kind of thing always reads better than it watches.
And that's all new.
Oh, interesting.
It is.
But doesn't it feel like a book ending?
Yes.
Maybe not the ending that the actual book did, but it feels like a book ending.
So that ceremony they do is not what that is in the book. They actually do that when they're kids in the clubhouse.
Oh, interesting.
They smoke up the clubhouse. It's an old like Native American ritual, so that they hallucinate, and that's how they see the origin of it, and then the meteor falling to the ground and all of that.
I'm very confused about that whole thing.
It's weird that they left that in, but didn't expand further. I can explain all of it to you, and I will in a moment.
So they say, like, it kind of is a placebo, so they sort of think it's working, but it's not actually working, but it does seem to do stuff. Is that just because if you think a thing is working against it, it works against it? Is that why it does anything?
Yes.
Okay, because when the 3 lights come down, I'm like, well, if it's just a placebo, why did that happen?
They're called the dead lights.
Yeah, why did the dead lights come down? Or was it daylights? I thought it was
dead lights.
Oh, dead lights. Okay.
It's a pun.
Why did they come down if the whole thing was BS?
No, because
I guess that's why. Okay,
okay. But again, we don't do enough of that with the kids,
also,
where it's about imagination and about...
I have questions about things that are supernatural that I don't understand why are supernatural.
Okay.
Like, why would getting all drugged up like that tell you history? Why would it explain a thing that actually happened?
So, okay, the first thing is... this is written...
Because they say it's BS, but I guess something about the ritual can't be BS, because it tells you the... I'm very confused about that.
Okay, so the first thing is, the book is written at the height of Stephen King's addictions. It was written from 81 to 84. He gets... the first book... We know that the first book he writes when he got sober comes out in 91. So, like, he is well into his addiction.
So is he buying into, like... If you get really high, you can maybe see into other dimensions and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So, It is a Native American ritual, like that's big in like Native American stuff is like the like vision quests and things like that, and so that's and you're supposed to see greater truths, and so that's what that is like it gives you the history of it and where it came from.
But it always feels mystical when it actually works because we tend to think of those things as not probably true.
So in it, the novel, there is the Great Turtle.
Okay.
The Great Turtle created the universe. He vomited out all of the universe. And
this sounds like Death Moises.
And it is essentially its polar opposite, because we are also told that something had to create the turtle, and that is referred to as the author. And often other times referred to as the writer, which all ties into the Dark Tower, because the turtle is one of the beasts that guard the 12 beams that hold up the...
that must be a Dark Tower thing.
Yes, the Dark Tower is held up by 12 beams. At the end of each of these beams is an animal totem, and one of them is the turtle. And so the turtle in the novel, for all intents and purposes, is God. And it is the Great Destroyer. When he talks about being the destroyer of worlds, it is literally.
Yeah.
It is the evil. The turtle created the universe, and it is there to destroy it.
Okay, but without that context, you assume it is just a space alien.
Yes.
Right?
It is an extra-dimensional, Lovecraftian-esque entity from beyond space. But they refer to it as from... beyond outer space.
In the movie,
it's interdimensional.
You know what I'm equating it to? Venom.
Oh,
it's just Venom.
I was thinking The Thing, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, it's more like The Thing than Venom, but I just mean in that, like, it's this...
It came down on a rock.
It came down on a rock.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't, like, take over... you know, it doesn't have a symbiosis with anybody, but it's got a big scary mouth with teeth.
No, in the book, it is not just an alien, and he kind of jokes about that. It refers to itself as it came from outer space.
Yeah.
It didn't come from outer space. It came from beyond space. It is an extra-dimensional entity, which is why everything's so metaphysical, and why it can and why we're dealing with things on the realms of imagination and things like that, is because it's not bound by our reality. It's from beyond reality.
That makes a lot more sense, because one thing that always confused me and felt almost like a Star Trek Out of Phase thing is in the first movie, you have people who can't see horrible things that happen, but they are physically definitely there because, like, with the blood in the bathroom, you can clean it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you don't do the thing that you often do where, like, a character imagines this happening, and then... Or you think it happens, and then they, like, close their eyes and open them, and then it's not there. Like, it's not like that. Like,
and there's...
It's more like Field of Dreams, where it's like, no, the baseball players are out there, but nobody else can see them.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with this, is there are things that I think are implied that need to be made more literal, because they are more literal in the book, or need to be said. I get showing, not telling, but there's some stuff that needs to be told with this.
Yes, absolutely.
All of that is happening because he's infecting the town. Like we're told he is the town. So when they defeat it at the end of the book, the town gets a giant earthquake and kind of starts collapsing in on itself because it has infected all of Derry.
Which is why you told me
that
the ending of Buffy is a lot like the ending of this book.
Yes.
Okay. So this is really interesting. I feel like you could have really easily gone a couple different directions with this, since you're so familiar with the material. I think you liked it. When you said you probably liked it more than me, if that's true, I think it's because of stuff that informs it that I didn't have, so you can make, like, thematic connections and stuff that I couldn't. Like, there's a lot of metaphysical stuff that I don't get because the context isn't there. Mm. But that could also infuriate you because it's not there. But you're appreciating some of that stuff in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't know what it represented, right?
Well, and some of it's cut. And this is what I want to talk about, some of the stuff that should have been cut because it doesn't come to anything.
Yeah.
We're also told, because it... being 1,200 pages, has many coincidences and things that just happen.
Yes.
It's all led by the turtle. The turtle
because there's some of that in this movie, too.
Yes. The turtle is God.
Like the kid that just happens to be in McAvoy's old house.
Okay, yes. Him, and that comes from the scene with the bike. In the book, he's like, I don't know why, I just know I'm supposed to buy this. Because the turtle is God, and he is leading them. In this movie...
Is it his old bicycle?
It is his old bicycle.
Okay, because here it's just like, oh, I want my old bike.
And I would have cut all of it completely, because it's only there for a thing that you can't adapt, so it shouldn't be there.
What is that thing? What is that thing?
Okay, so his wife, who actually loves him in the book, instead of here where it seems like he's just with her because she's hot, like she's a hot actress, so he's with her, but like, he doesn't really respect her.
I don't feel like we have enough context to make any case at all.
Okay,
I mean,
he's kind of disrespectful to her.
He seems to be, but he's also just frustrated because he likes his ending and it's Hollywood and they won't let him have it. And you've got kind of some doublespeak going on from the director who's saying we want to make you happy, but he clearly doesn't care as much about that as he does making a movie that will sell. Because of course, because that's his job. But when, and I don't mean to talk about this line too much, but when he says, "I want you to be what I want you to be," that could also just as easily be a slip of the tongue. Like when he says, "I meant on the page," he might have meant on the page.
I took that as a Freudian slip in meaning, Bev. But so
and I see why you did that, but we get one scene with her, so I don't have enough context. Yeah. And there's nothing else like that in the rest of the movie with him.
Yeah.
He's not a womanizer. He's not. You know what I mean?
No, and we don't do enough with him and Bev. Like that's a little bit more complicated in the book. But so anyways, so they have a happy marriage, and so
wait, does he only? I'm so dumb. I just thought of it. Does he only write unhappy endings because of Georgie?
I don't know. That's not in the book. He's a horror writer, and a lot of his books deal with childhood trauma. And he kind of doesn't know why because he doesn't remember his childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And Stephen King has that too to a degree. A lot of his books have childhood trauma. Although he says the character is not based on himself; it's based on Pierre Straub. I don't believe that. Seems like Stephen King to me. But so anyways, so they have a loving marriage in the in the book, and so when he gets a phone call and is all of a sudden just super unreasonable, it's like, no, I have to leave. You can't come with me. Like you have to stay here. You just have to trust me. I'm going. She thinks that's super suspicious. So she follows him. After he leaves, she goes there. And Bev's abusive husband also is drawn there because it is kind of infecting him, kind of. It's not making him bad, but it's drawing him to Derry.
Why even have those characters?
I don't know. Well, you need Bev's abusive husband because she grew up to marry her dad. It's not fully underlined in the film, but like she grew up to marry her dad, and that's what that is.
And also she has like nothing to lose now. She has no reason to go back to anything.
Yes.
I mean her clothing line, I guess.
And so they're both coming to Derry kind of at the same time. And so when Henry the bully, which by the way that is the divergence point, when he goes to attack Mike and he gets killed, that is the end of being kind of very much the book.
I was going to ask you how you felt about how that character was handled, because he seemed kind of pointless to me.
He does in the book too.
Oh, okay. He seemed like just we wanted another physical force so that everything wasn't just fighting something that's not really there.
It's kind of important in the book, but it also feels that way. I'm of two minds about it.
I like the idea of having essentially a Herald of Galactus. That's what that watches to me like, and I like that idea where it's like, because with a horror thing, especially a movie, you expect the slasher character is trying to murder everyone, and I like that there's like this crazy guy that works for the bad guy. That's a really fun idea. So I don't think we do anything with it. It feels like human Agent Smith.
What he's supposed to be, or at least, and this is, and I will say this is my interpretation of the book, because I could totally understand most people listening or reading to that book and going, why do we spend so much time on the bully? He just shows up and gets killed. It's kind of like in the movie The Shining, where we just keep cutting back to. So that is all pretty much what happens in the book. The only difference is that Mike,
the caretaker guy, is who you're talking about.
Yes. Mike gets severely injured and is in the hospital and sits the rest of the book out, which is just a waste of that character, and especially in a story about teamwork and friendship. That seems like a mistake. I will say,
we need all of us. We all have to be there,
because there's a lot of people that do not like the ending of it and think it's dumb.
Are you one of those people?
I have complicated feelings. I would refer to it as it ended the way it needed to end.
Okay.
It's not a great ending, but it comes together the way it needs to come together, and it's not spectacular action-packed. And this is going to make me sound completely not like me, but I think it's an ending that validates the journey over the ending, which is not who I am. I hate journey over ending things. What's the point of getting to the end? But it's not a bad ending. It ends. And, like, it's not actually important that they're confronting it because they've gotten through all their personal trauma, so they just kind of beat him.
And you also kind of know that has to happen.
Yeah.
There's no eventuality where... Because why are we following these kids, then?
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost not even a spoiler to say, and then it is defeated at the end, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of how the ending plays. I mean, it's not that basic, but like, yeah, it just kind of and then they beat him. But it works for me. Like, it works fine. It's not cinematic. You do have to change it. You cannot end the movie that way. But like that ending, I think is fine. There were like 3 more endings, and we'll kind of talk about those and how they interlink with the film. But to get to the bicycle, because that's what this is all about. So both Bev's abusive husband Tom and Audra, who is Bill's wife, they're both kind of parallel coming to Derry when Henry dies. Because the whole point of Henry, at least in my interpretation, this is not exactly stated in the film or in the book. What I like about Henry, and I think works about Henry, but I can also see people reading differently and just thinking it was Stephen King writing pages and being like, well, I'm done with that, now they go fight it. It's scared of them and it's weak, and so it doesn't want to confront them. So it's going to use other avatars that it can control. It's not just about being a physical threat, it's about it hiding.
But see, it doesn't feel like it's actually hiding until the very, very end to me in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It kind of doesn't in the book, but it kind of does.
That's a really cool idea if that's what he's getting at, but you're saying that you can't be totally sure.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of why we use Henry.
It's not like we get in its head, so it would be very difficult.
In the book?
Interesting!
Yes.
But it would be, at least in a movie, difficult to know, is it hiding because it knows that there is a way that they could beat it if they just aren't afraid of it? Or is it just being a standard horror character that's lurking in the shadows? And it generally seems to be that second thing.
What they change in this movie that makes that interpretation for Henry not exactly work is that Henry is treated almost like another character. We go through all of them, like them picking up the phone, and then we go to Henry and him getting called. In the book, we don't do that. Henry doesn't get called till later because it has already tried to scare them and failed. We had the giant Paul Bunyan, we had the scary old lady, and they're not afraid. So then it chooses to try a human, because...
That makes a lot more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
It's trying different tactics, and then it makes it look smart.
Yeah.
Like it's not just pulling random stuff.
But it doesn't...
It does sort of feel like it's just doing things.
Yeah, and I could get that feeling. Like, if somebody read the book and got that interpretation, that's fine. I didn't. I was like, this is why.
In the movie, it feels like he's just doing stuff.
Yes. So after after the bully dies, he then takes control of Tom and makes Tom kidnap Audra. And Audra's soul kind of starts getting sucked out. She's, like, captured by it. Kind of what we do with Bev in the first movie. And I assume we cut all of that from this movie. 1, because of how we get her out of it. But 2, because we already did that with Bev in the first movie.
Yeah.
We don't want a damsel girl twice.
And isn't that not a thing that happens in the book?
No, she is not captured.
She floats?
No, the floating isn't even... The floating is because they're in the sewers, and when you die, your body floats. They literalized it in the movie.
Yeah, but I think it's okay.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. But I also don't like in the book because...
I like that at least in the sequel, it feels like there's an explanation for it. Because it seemed like just a real, like, weird, surreal thing they did in the first book, or in the first movie. And in this, it seems like it has something to do with the fact that it's a space entity, and that it's like a gravity well or something. It has something to do with the lights.
So, in the book, everyone talks about, like, it just turns out to be a spider. It's a spider. It's not a spider. The way that they explain it is very Lovecraftian. He is an extra-mental entity that we can't conceive of his true form. Spider's the closest we can imagine.
Okay.
Spider's the closest we can come. What undermines the idea is that he literally has webs, and instead of people floating, he has them in webs.
Okay.
So I am kind of okay with the floating thing. I just didn't need it said like 4 million times in that first movie.
And also, like, when you're adapting things, you also have to think about the history of the medium. There's way too many giant spiders in film.
Some of them brought to you by John Peters. But so Bev, when they escape, Bev is comatose. And remember earlier, he gets this bike, Silver, and it's very important. He doesn't know why, but it's very important. And she is completely invalid, and he is taking care of her.
I didn't know that he named it that. I thought he was just quoting.
No, and that's also something I didn't catch till rewatching the first movie after the book. It says silver on it. Also, if you go back to that first movie, that bike is way bigger than all the other kids' bikes because an adult has to ride that later.
That's great.
Except that they don't. You could have cut all that because the reason he has to get the bike is he goes, I have an idea. Okay, this ties into the bike thing. So he gets the bike and he goes out and there's the kid with the skateboard. I don't think the kid is living in his house in the book. I don't remember, but I don't think he's living in his house. He's just a kid with a skateboard. That's a super important scene for the book, but not so much for the movie. He's riding a skateboard, and when he tells that kid to be safe, well, first of all, he tries to ride the skateboard and like wipes out immediately. And he has a whole conversation. He's not scary to that kid. The kid starts to ride away on the skateboard, and he says, be safe, and he says, you can't be safe on a skateboard? And, like, that sticks with him.
Interesting.
Because children, it's about not having fear.
Yeah.
It's about not being afraid, and children don't have fear. They do dangerous, stupid things like ride skateboards.
Because they think they're immortal and
yes,
they live forever.
Yes, and that's what you want. At the end of all of this in the book, it kind of comes down to don't stop being a kid, but also, very importantly, because I think a lot of things miss this, being an adult's pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
You want to find a medium, and that's kind of what the end of the book is about. But so anyways, what happens is, so she's comatose.
And the movie doesn't not do that.
No, it's just not underlined as much. But
I just want to say bigger broad strokes thing for a second. I appreciated like the fun that the movie was having with the material. Like there's a playful nature to all of this.
There is,
so when the like. One of the best things about the movie is that the adults become children again, and they're like more. They're not like totally stuffy, but I really love when they get back together in the Chinese restaurant
like, lighten
scene.
up immediately.
Not just lighten up, but almost become the characters they were 27 years ago, and they start like swearing every other word again, which they're not doing as much as adults because like they're adults now, and it's not.
They say the F word a lot more in this one.
That's true. They do say it a lot. Yeah.
It never felt unnatural though. But like I was noticing, I was like, this is a lot more than the first movie. But I guess they're adults; they can do that.
But suddenly they're doing all that crude humor again.
Yeah.
That they were doing with their kids, and they were.
We also bring in Beep Beep, which was not a thing in the first movie, and that felt retroactive. Beep Beep is what you say to Richie when he talks too much, or he's going somewhere.
I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah, and it's when he's talking too much, or more specifically, when he's going somewhere that like you need to stop talking.
Oh,
like you're going too far. You're going too far. Beep Beep, Richie. It's not in the first movie at all.
That's weird.
We start using it in this movie. There's a couple of things like that where I'm like, yeah, it's in the book.
Pay off to a thing that we didn't have in the first place.
Yeah. So anyways, with the bike, because I just want to get past this bike thing, so we can talk about other things.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Audra is comatose, and he goes, I have an idea, because one of the changes in this movie, there are two things we do at the ending. One of them I don't like, and one of them I do. When they say that they want a happy ending, I agree with one of their choices for a happy ending, which is, in the book, when they leave, they all forget again. I prefer them all remembering. Yeah. I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, that's great.
But so, they're starting to forget each other, and before he can forget, he has this one last-ditch effort. He goes, it's stupid and it's insane, but I think this is the only way that I can save my wife. And he gets on the bike, and he puts his wife on the bike, and they start riding. And, like, it's just, like, childhood joy, and, like, him being a kid again. Like, this is when he gets to his epiphany of, like, but I don't want to stop being an adult either. It's not great to live like a kid. And it fixes her.
Weird.
And it works fine in prose. You cannot adapt that scene. And they try in the original miniseries. And you don't know what's happening, and it's dumb.
Okay, well, it's for the best that character's not.
So after explaining all that,
yeah.
Why leave anything with the bike in?
Right.
Other than our weird current fetishizing of
Sorry, I
children
didn't
on
realize
bikes.
you weren't finished with all of that. I was already like, why is that there? Yeah, sorry.
But, like, aside from our fetishization of children on bikes, which is at critical mass, can I just say, can we be done? I'm done with it. I'm done with kids on bikes. Yes, I rode a bike around with my friends, too. Like, it's getting creepy. Stranger Things can be the end of that.
You can give it a pass in this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it has to be there in this, and they made the period piece stuff the period where we were all doing that, so...
It's the slow motion shots where it's like, look, it's children on bikes. I'm like, this is weird. But that's all fine, because that bike thing is leading somewhere. Except it doesn't go anywhere. So why is it in this movie?
Yeah.
I mean, the kids. I mean, why does he have to find that bike?
Yeah.
And
doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything. It's weird. and the turtle's not leading him because they don't mention the turtle. He just sees it. But yeah.
No, we don't get any sense of celestial or anything.
Not on the good side. Oh, well, I guess not on the good side either.
At all, man. I'm telling you.
You're right, it just feels like...
From where I'm sitting,
it just feels like an alien.
It's a space alien.
Okay. That's fair.
And I'd love to know in the comments if other people had that or if they assumed it was an interdimensional being, because there's no reason to assume that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just did because I have the background.
Sure.
I was excited when I saw the turtle, and there was a turtle in the first one too. When he goes into his little brother's room, there's like he was building a Lego turtle. That's the turtle. The turtle is always guiding them, kind of metaphorically, symbolically.
The thing is, if you tried Dark Tower in a good way,
Amazon's trying, so we'll see. They started shooting.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying, if you did like a movie series or something, and you try to do Dark Tower, it would be really easy to fit it into the same continuity as this without going back to it. And so I like the idea of
could enhance some of that stuff in this movie.
Sure.
For non.
And I like the idea of referencing something like the turtle, but never actually doing anything with it.
And we don't in the tower. Like you never see the turtle.
Okay.
We just know it exists.
Sure. But I like the idea of referencing it before you even know what it is. I mean, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it happens. Like, it comes out, and then that stuff gets added to the tower mythology later.
Okay.
And there is, like, a sister-cousin type thing.
Nobody has a big speech where it's like, okay, look, there's this big turtle.
In it?
In it, yeah.
No, there is.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Kind of. No, I'm saying it does all the turtle stuff, and then later in the Dark Tower, he goes, yeah, the turtle's part of the Dark Tower.
Oh, okay, I see.
Now, he might have already been thinking that, but it doesn't show up in the Dark Tower till published later, years later. But, no, when we get into Pennywise's head, he starts talking about the turtle and how much he hates the turtle, and then the kids know about the turtle, and he, I think, lies to them, because when they come to him as adults, he's like, the turtle can't even help you now. He choked on a galaxy and died. But yeah,
I'm just imagining like turtle churches.
It's the one true religion. Well, except that there's something above the turtle, which is Stephen King.
Right.
In the hierarchy of celestial beings, there is the turtle and then Stephen King.
Just true. That's how making fiction works. You are God.
But so anyways, so I would have cut that, and there's some other things I would have cut. If you cut some of that bike stuff, and you cut the gay guy getting attacked in the beginning of the movie, which doesn't need to be there because we don't underline enough that he is the reason all this is happening. Because he's not...
No, I didn't understand that at all. I thought it was just two things. I thought it was an example of... okay, it's 27 years later and stuff's happening again. And an example of people in Derry are crazy.
But people in Derry are crazy because of him. He doesn't just prey on children, he enhances evil within people.
But the question is, and I had this all the way up until just now, I guess, does he only do that when he comes out, or is it always happening?
It seems to only happen every 27 years.
Okay.
It's when he comes out that he does that.
I thought Derry was just always awful.
It is, but every 27 years.
Okay.
Going backwards to the dawn of Derry.
Yeah.
You said you had something about Mike.
Mike, I always felt like with the first movie is not there enough.
He's not.
And we don't really know a lot about him, and he's obviously given a lot more screen time here, but he feels like a plot device.
Can I tell you what I would have done? Like, if
I like that actor a lot. I don't know who that is.
I don't either, but he's great.
I thought he was great. You know who he reminded me of a lot? In the face and in his voice, he looks and sounds like Phil Morris.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like if Phil Morris was 10 years younger, he could have played that role.
So if I was to try and adapt it, the first thing I do is I make Stan and Eddie one character. Which is unfortunate because in this movie Stan's great. The grown up Stan's the
hypochondriac.
The hypochondriac. Yeah. I would make him the Jewish kid the same kid. He could be a hypochondriac and also be Jewish, and I would make Ben and Mike the same character because at least in that first movie, they gave Ben all of Mike's stuff. Mike is the historian. He stays behind and works in the library. Like he's the one who knows the history of Derry. They gave it to Ben for some reason, which leaves Mike with nothing to do.
I was wondering about that. While I was watching this one, I was like, well, now, wait a minute. How come Ben was the guy that went to the library?
It's because it's Mike in the book.
knows everything, yeah.
The book. It's long enough to be books.
But no, I mean, what's frustrating is I like him, but I don't know enough about him.
Yeah, I would have just made Mike and Ben the same character, and I would have made Stan and I think it would be easier to keep track of them.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel like there were too many characters as much in this because we get rid of one, and then everybody gets enough to do.
But in the first one, Eddie doesn't get a lot to do, which makes his death mean not as much.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
But Mike doesn't either. There are two superfluous kids in that first movie. If you just merge them, you don't have two superfluous kids.
Something, I don't know where else I'm going to put I would put this, so I got to mention it now. At the end, and like, it's well written and I like it, but when they all get the letter, and they open up the letter...
I don't like that.
And they say, you don't like that he sends the letter?
No, I don't like that he sends the letter.
Okay, so you can talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But when they all open the letter, the first thing the letter says is, "This is not a suicide note. It's totally a suicide note."
Yeah,
like, that's what it is.
Well, no, it's not the letter. There's something else at the ending that I don't like. The letter is okay. It's a little okay. So here's what's weird, because this is the big thing I want to talk about in spoilers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you brought this up to me almost immediately when you saw me and read it completely differently.
Yeah.
The happy ending thing.
Yes.
Which I immediately was like, you're telling me that this ending is going to be different. And then we keep having characters tell him...
What he's talking about is McAvoy's character doesn't like happy endings when he's writing.
His books tend
everybody hates his endings because they're never happy endings.
It's not just not happy endings. We're told they're anticlimactic. He's like, that's kind of how life is.
Well, yeah, but they really emphasize that like, it's not tied with a bow.
Yeah. That there's loose ends and things like that. And like, your ending sucks. And then people keep telling me his ending sucks, including
to the point where Stephen King doesn't want his autograph on the book he's got on his desk.
Yes, because the ending sucks.
Because the ending's not good. That's great.
Why is it still on his desk? Did he just finish it right before he walked in?
To be fair, it was under things.
That's true.
It was under a couple of things.
That's true. And so all of this to me was telegraphing.
Can we agree everything about that scene is great?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful. It's maybe the best acting job Stephen King's ever done.
It's probably the most he's ever been on screen, yeah?
You've never seen Creepshow.
Oh, why? Does he have a role
He's the main character in a segment.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it pretty bad?
Oh, no, I love it.
Oh,
He
okay.
won't talk about it. He's embarrassed. He plays a ridiculous yokel. Like, he is dialed up to 11, and it's hilarious. I think it works completely. Like, it's a real over-the-top segment. I think it works.
You know what my favorite one is, right?
No.
Maximum Overdrive, man.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's the best.
Yes.
F-U, it's the best.
But,
this is a close second.
But, so, we have all of this, like, build-up of the book's ending sucks. And to me, I'm like, okay, you're telling me the book's ending sucks and you're going a different direction. They kind of don't, but then they do, and it's weird.
Okay, so in what way is it the same?
They go down, they fight the big spider it.
Okay.
The way they do it is different, but that's fine because it's more cinematic. Like,
yeah,
that's
sure.
Just adapting. That didn't feel like we're going completely
and it's still
different
pretty
direction.
respectful because they're not
still doing the big
they're
spider
not
thing.
stabbing it with stuff, they're yelling at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do stab it in the first film. I thought that was a mistake.
Yeah.
But, so no, and they're using stuff from the book, they're just recontextualizing it. Like, that whole ritual thing is different in the book, but, like, they're using stuff from the book. And I was like, and Stan still dies. I was like, well, this isn't that much more of a happy ending. And the movie kept going.
Yeah.
And
it's trying to leave you with a really uplifting feeling.
Yes, and way too hard.
Yes.
The only thing I like about
it's sappy. The like every kid has a line and a sentence voiceover thing is obnoxious, and I don't like it.
Yep. No, I agree. And okay, but so I'm fine with everyone remembers and they stay friends.
I love that.
That is a great, like I don't love in the book that they all just forget again. I kind of get what we're doing metaphorically, maybe, or subtextually with like, you don't hang on to your childhood, and like as you grow older, you just
move on.
and there's no stopping that. I kind of get that, but also in a literal sense in the story, I don't know, like, you have to magically make them forget for them to not, like, hang out a little bit more.
It makes
like,
more
if they drifted
sense
apart naturally again, that would make more sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense because they got rid of it, and so I really like the idea, the ambiguous notion of it was they probably are remembering now because the supernatural force underneath the area is gone now. Mm-hmm. But I also really like that line that Mike has, and I think that's his best scene, when he's like, but it might just be that we had things we wanted to remember, and so now we're hanging on to it.
Well, and that ties into the voiceover narration at the beginning where he talks about sometimes we have more things we want to forget than we want to remember, and that's why
I totally
we forget.
forgot that was even there.
Yeah, no, that's a bookend, and should have been what the movie ends on.
Yeah, it should have.
Instead of that big, long, sappy, like
when they're riding bikes.
Yeah, like it's a little bit more of an upbeat ending than the book, and like everyone remembers. But then it kept going, and I started getting irritated. I was like,
and it thinks
this isn't what's wrong with the book. You're not fixing this.
And suddenly it thinks it's a family film or something.
It's really weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's only there for like a minute, but I would have cut the kids again.
But the other reason I really like having everybody... Yes. The other reason I like having everybody remember, though, is when you go back to the first movie, there's that interesting discussion about how most people don't keep their friends from middle school.
Yeah.
And I like that is true, partly because they don't remember each other, some of them, and partly just because they drifted apart 27 years, but then this experience would draw them back together, and they don't do that in a sappy way. It's like he and Mike are talking, and it's like, I love you, man, I'll see you around, but it's not like they're living together or anything.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, I like some of the stuff, and it just keeps
great.
going, and it's so over the top and so, like, schmarmy, like happy ending, and I'm like, this is too far, like...
It's got that Lord of the Rings thing, and it's a little, I don't know, I don't even think pretentious is the right word, it just...
You could have cut a lot of that, and put more stuff at the beginning to contextualize. That's also a thing, is maybe, like, they still kind of go back to the not great lines. Well, okay, no, Stan's dead. Stan doesn't have to go back to his wife that's his mom, which is a whole thing. Because he married his mom.
Oh, okay.
Because she's a big, fat, overbearing person who's, like, super controlling. And when he's on the phone with her in the car, she's big and fat and controlling.
Now, is that the, does he do the same thing in the book where he commits suicide to bring them together? And how do you feel about that whole thing?
I thought that was... No, he's just scared.
Because I was of two minds about it. That felt like one of those kind of, like, not almost master manipulator things where it's like, well, thank God that worked, right? Like...
Yeah, I didn't like that. No, I guess that is the thing.
I feel like that's the kind of thing that a writer will think to put in a script that very few human beings would ever think to do, where it's like, well, I can't think of any other way to make sure that they all get... And also, how could he be positive that they weren't going to get together in the first place? Like, why did he have to do something so dramatic before they even got together, right? Mm-hmm. That was my big question.
Yeah, no, it undercuts... Well, I guess... it undercuts the fear, because in the book, it's really big. Like, oh, this guy just killed himself. And you don't know anything, because this is before you even cut back to the kid stuff. So, like, in the book, it's like, oh my God.
Well, there's an assumption for a long time in the movie that it happens, that he didn't actually kill himself. It happens because they're all destined to die. And the big,
that stuff's also not in the book.
The big reason that... Yeah, but okay.
I guess that is...
Okay, but
I guess that is the explanation, that is the place-in for the turtle. We replaced the turtle with that, I guess.
Well, what I do like about it is that it gives them all, like, a personal impetus to be there. Where it's like, well, we were all gonna leave, but our lives are in danger, and it doesn't feel the whole movie like it's, like, that's the main reason, but it makes sense to start there. Eventually, they really are all friends, and they all care about each other, and they want to stop this thing, but initially... Because it makes a lot of sense that they don't want to be there, and that, like, I like that line that somebody has that's like, well, yeah, people die all the time. Like, it sucks that this is happening, but why do we have to be the ones to fix it?
I think that's Richie.
That sounds like a Richie line. I just can't remember who said it. But they've all got, you know, at that point. I'm just saying, from a writer's perspective, there's immediately a personal impetus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and stakes and a reason to be there.
I really don't like the letter. That's just too much.
Yeah.
You got your more happy version of the book ending. You don't need to keep doing this too. It's...
No, I'm with you. I don't think
it goes too far. And again, you can cut all that stuff.
But I think I am okay with... We all think we're gonna die, so that's why we're here.
No, the Destiny stuff works fine. And I like that when she says...
I don't know that the predestination stuff is really necessary or we ever do enough with it, because it's like, it has some line about, like, you haven't changed the future yet, and I don't really know, maybe I just need to see it again. I don't really know what Bev having seen their deaths really does for the story at all?
So what I took from it in this film, it's not in the first one, because the first one she just says, like, she saw them old.
And they add more to that scene.
Yes. Yes. What I took from it was, I also like that, too. I liked the idea, we don't fully do it, but it's what I got from the movie, which is my interpretation of that first movie being a little bit too safe and just a little bit too heartwarming family film.
Yeah.
That's how they remembered it. And there's things, because when he comes back, because in the movie, or in the book, they don't remember anything. In this, when they sit down at the Chinese restaurant, Richie says, yeah, we all remember it. We remember this, we remember this, we remember defeating it, and they're like, there's more to it. Right. And those scenes are supposed to, there's even more stuff they forgot. I like the idea that the first movie, which I think is a little too safe, is them really intentionally remembering it safer than it was. I like that.
Yeah, that's fun.
What the interpretation I had of the thing, which isn't in the book because it's the turtle, but the interpretation I had of this film, so it's just an interpretation, was she knows that they have to face it, and if they fail, they will all die horrible deaths later in life. So they have to come back and do this, but they could still fail.
Yeah.
So like it's their only chance to not die horrible deaths. Because if they, because Richie says he's going to leave, and she goes, if we don't do this, we'll all die horrible deaths. But I imagine even if they tried and failed and didn't die, they still end up with horrible deaths.
Because I just assumed, and maybe this is just because this is what we usually do with stuff like this, I assumed that how exactly they each died would end up being important, and she'd be like, "Oh, don't go that way, because then you're gonna get your head lopped off."
No, I saw this like a branching timeline where like either we defeat it or we die horribly. Yeah. These are the only two options.
Yeah, so fate is just actions and consequences, and if we do nothing, this is what will happen, and if we do something, this is what could happen. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
As far as the kids, I'm going to ask you this 50 minutes ago. As far as the kids' roles in this movie, I assumed that they must have either shot that stuff when they shot the first movie, or had the script and that was all the first stuff they did, because they all look the exact same age.
I think I heard or I want to say, and I don't remember because I didn't love that first movie, so I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the production of this film. I want to say I heard that they were using scenes that they cut from the first movie.
I wondered if that was some of it, but
I can't remember.
I figured some of it had to be new.
I do too. I'm not sure,
because some of the kids looked really essential. They looked exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I also had the same question. I was like, did they shoot this stuff back then? But we know that they didn't have a script for the second movie. So
interesting.
When they made the first movie, I'm sure they started working on it.
I was really surprised when you said that.
I'm sure they started
6
working on it
later.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I don't know if you know this. It's the highest-grossing horror movie of all time.
Yeah.
Globally. It's not in America, but I think it's the highest-grossing R-rated horror movie in America.
Curious to see how this one does.
Me too. Because I hope it does well, because I really like it.
Me too, but like, I wasn't hearing a ton about it from just people. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like a lot of people that I knew were excited about it.
Yeah, and
anecdotal certainly, but like, and like it had a fine advertising campaign, because we saw trailers a lot.
I think this is also much harder to sell.
I didn't love the trailers. I'm just saying that they put them out.
Well, and they were real like basic trailers. Where like I'm like, yeah, the people like the first movie are gonna like this movie, or are gonna like this movie. Like that was my interpretation of the trailers. Was like they were selling it to that audience. The people that still are saying,
which is fine, because the way to bring,
or you'll float too.
If it's and we'll all float on. Okay, if it's possible at all to bring in new people, oh, this looks interesting, I'll go back and watch the first movie, you have to do it with scenes that you don't want to spoil.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to do it with some of that.
Well, and I thought the trailers did a really good job of not spoiling things.
Right, but that's because they just used material that you weren't excited about.
Yeah.
I thought so much of the creepy stuff that Pennywise does was really creative.
I did
just super creative.
I messaged you when I was going through the book, and I was like, in the book there's a giant Paul Bunyan. They'll never do that in the movie.
They did it.
They did a giant Paul Bunyan.
Pretty fun.
It was
pretty great. And I love that he just stands there and he's like, it's not real. And also I liked the touch of the frozen crowd.
Yes. I loved the light change when Pennywise showed up. Did you notice that?
I don't know if I did.
When Pennywise shows up to him, it only happens in that scene, everything gets brighter. Like, the grass goes from green to, like, turquoise, and the sky color changes. And then when he closes his eyes, he says it's not real. It's normal colors. And when he opens them and he's still there, it goes back to those like Tim Burton-y colors.
That's cool.
I really liked that. There's one other major thing I wanted to mention about...
Like, all the stuff in the house at the end is really cool.
No, I agree. I thought all the scares were better. Even the ones that didn't look great were at least fun. Yeah. Like all the CGI things I have an issue with, I was like, yeah, but it's a big, weird, naked old woman. Like, that's fun.
It's also really sad when the kid dies in the...
Oh, that's the thing I want to talk about. This is a thing that I think is an improvement on the novel. The novel doesn't care about like, the next generation. Like, he has that conversation with that kid, but that's to inspire him about being more childlike. It is about them. It doesn't actually deal a lot with the next generation of kids.
Yeah.
I loved taking that kid and going, and now Pennywise is after him, and you have to, like, if you don't stop him now, there's going to be more kids that this is going to happen to. I liked putting that more front and center.
Yeah, because before you had that, one question I had going into this movie, just knowing that it was going to be 40-somethings going up against Pennywise, is, doesn't he go after kids? Like, I get that he's going to attack them if they're attacking him, but, like, why is Pennywise still so interested in these kids, besides, I guess, just the fact that they almost killed him the first time? But, like, isn't he still going after kids? Doesn't he need that? Isn't that how he sustains himself? Remember the sheer number of children he had floating in that first movie? Like, does he still have it? And we don't see that at the end. Like, I don't know how many he's got. We don't see the floating again. We don't see all of them.
No, it almost looks like a different set.
It does look like a different set. And then, for a second, I realized that this was just kind of a gag. But for a second, when he said sink, I was thinking maybe he was just doing a different thing. Like, they're all drowning this time. They're all underwater this time.
Oh, the other big thing that we cut from the book, from the ending, and this is, again, fine, it's female.
Interesting.
And has, like, 100 babies that are about to be born, and they have to go around, like, squishing all these, like, spider babies.
Weird.
Because there's about to be hundreds of it.
Well, that would be really terrifying.
There was literally a chapter that ends with the line...
If it's been there that long, though, how come it's never procreated?
I forget. I think there is a reason. Maybe it's been building this the whole time.
Also, you know how I was comparing it to Venom earlier?
Or there might not be an answer.
You know how Spawn is basically just Venom?
Yeah.
Spawn's female. The costume, yeah. K7 Letha.
But he... where's I going with that? Oh, no, there was literally a chapter that ends with the line, "It is a female!"
Wow.
Yeah. But no, that's cut and that's fine. Like
versus Proto-Clown. It's a clown!
I think that might... Going back, I think that might be a reference to It is Female? Because I think that's in the miniseries.
Interesting, because I always thought it was just... They were being funny, making fun of it, which obviously is what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I
think it might be a specific.
Yeah, I think it might specifically be it is a female.
It's a clown.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, so I liked it a lot. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's better than I ever imagined it was going to be.
Do you think it's about the best you could probably do? I mean, there's tweaks you would make, but just in general, especially like just tone and atmosphere and characterization for the most part, like.
I think it's good enough that there's no reason to try again. I think you could make a better adaptation, but I would do it as like a 10-hour miniseries that actually follows the structure of the book a little bit more, going back and forth between adults and kids.
That would have to be a very talky, very character-driven.
Yeah. I
think your tea-drinking horror.
I think that still is. It could be done, but I don't think it needs to exist. I think after these two movies, we don't ever need to make it again. I think it's good enough that you can call this a definitive adaptation.
Before this, and I obviously haven't seen all of them.
I would also say it does not supplement the book, and it's long. You can skim parts. It's a minor masterpiece. If it's 600-700 pages, most people agree that The Stand is Stephen King's best book.
Yeah.
If this is 600-700 pages, this is on par with The Stand, I think. At 1,200 pages, it's a little fatty. I do recommend people read the book. And I think everyone knows about the big weird thing that happens at the end. Do you know about the big that everyone talked about?
Not right off.
All the kids have sex.
Oh, really? As kids?
Yes.
Oh.
I am going to say the thing that everyone
You have told me that. I forgot about it.
I'm going to say the thing that everyone that read the book said. It's probably not the best thing you could have done. It works in context. Like, I'm not saying
But
it had to be there.
It's probably for the best that that orgy was not in the
Oh,
movie.
it can never be filmed. You can't have a bunch of 12-year-olds doing that. But, like, I feel like everyone that's creeped out by that scene never actually read the book, just knows it's there. In context, reading the book,
It kind of makes sense.
it works. It's not great. He could have done it a different way. I'm not saying it has to be there. But it does work in the prose. It is the finalization of moving from childhood to adulthood. It is the like pin there after they defeat it that they are no longer children. They have all gone through something, but also after they defeat it, the first time as kids, their bond starts dissipating and they start fracturing in the caves, and they're going to get lost and never like we're told many times, you can get lost in the sewers and be stuck there for weeks and die. And they're going to do that because they're all fractured now. Because the thing that brought them together was it, and it's dead. And so, like, on like a mystical level, their friendship's breaking down. And so Bev, one by one, sleeps with each of them.
Oh, you did tell me.
And it's a massive bonding experience for them. It's also in the dark, so it's not like creepy where like people are watching them.
Yeah.
No one can see anything. But it's supposed to be this big bonding experience between them. It's
and
not the,
now they're men.
And now she's a woman. And it also there's a whole thing with her dad, because her dad's keeps accusing her of doing this, and like
Now she does it for a reason.
and there's a whole and she'd never actually had sex. Like everyone calls her a slut, but she's not. And so and this is this whole thing where she's like, I don't think any of those girls that I know at school know what sex is actually like, because it's like it's a very romantic depiction of sex and the loss of virginity and all of that. It's a very romanticized take on all of that. It doesn't. It should never be an adaptation of the material. There is no way, much like the bike scene, without the prose around it, you can't literalize
could you
it.
imply it?
I just don't.
I'm not sure how you do it.
Unless you're in those characters' heads, and this is the case where I think everything weird in that book that people who haven't read the book always bring up and talk about. I think without the prose,
because they're imagining it in a film or something.
Yes, I think without the prose and literally being inside of the characters' heads, you cannot do it. Which is why I think it's unadaptable. So much of that movie's inside characters' heads. I don't think if you put it on screen, no one's going to know what they're looking at.
Well, I've said this before, but we have to remember that Stephen King is a literary writer.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
he is one of the most famous writers who ever lived, and we think of him as really mainstream. And his stuff, a lot of it is really mainstream and gets adapted to even more mainstreamy kinds of Hollywooded stuff. But the man's a storyteller, and he's a literary storyteller.
He's the most literary, like, populist writer.
Yes.
He
walks that line.
And that is the draw of Stephen King as a writer, is that he writes on a level that, and this is why he was such a big success in the 70s and 80s as a novelist, was he writes on a level that a gym teacher can read him and enjoy him, and a literary major can read him and enjoy him. That is the draw of Stephen King. That is the brilliance of Stephen King, is that he writes lowbrow enough that non-readers can read him, and he writes sophisticated enough that readers can enjoy him.
Well, and I would say usually the writing itself is always pretty sophisticated, but the stories he's telling, the choices he makes in subject matter in the first place, at the very least, more lowbrow.
It's very populist. He almost does like literary versions of populist ideas, which is very interesting. And so much of his work is recontextualizing things from his own childhood, like EC comics and B movies and things like that. And like, what if I
likes
did that
popular stuff?
Yeah, and he likes horror and.
So the last thing I wanted to say real quick, because we're gonna run out of space on the SD card. It's blinking at me right now. Is I think. Of the Stephen King movies that I have seen, because I haven't seen them all, this is at least as good, these two together, as my favorite of them, which was Misery. I mean, these were at least as good as Misery.
This is in top 5, top 10. I would have to sit down and look at all the Stephen... Because most Stephen King movies aren't very good.
Exactly.
It's not a hard
low
list.
Bar. Yeah.
And I don't love The Shining, so, like, that's not... Like, if I was like, this is better than The Shining, everyone would be like, you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like The Shining.
We've got to go. Anything else you got to make sure that you say?
No. Yeah, it's good.
It is good.
And as a now fan of the book, it's good.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. And leave comments, tell us what you thought of the movie if you saw it. I'm Captain Logan.
Remember?
Later, folks.